like you had such a viral jump to fame with the Monica Lewinsky video.
That week was probably the happiest I've ever been. The anxiety of making it last really stresses me out.
Do you ever struggle with intrusive thoughts while you're filming, making a TikTok, any of that? Or is it more
all the
so?
time. Like, I wish people understood, like, I believe what I'm thinking, right? Like, I know it's crazy to some people, but I believe it. And it's very debilitating. We don't need to talk about mental health and like this, like, it can exist in the same conversation as a joke. That's the only way you can make something like feel normal.
In terms of your tour coming up, do you have any like kind of like mental like plans in place or anything for, oh, what if I get really anxious during this thing and it's live?
It's happening, and like we're gonna just have to deal with it in the moment.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the NOCD YouTube channel. I'm Yusra Shah, a writer here at NOCD. I know things might look a little bit different than what you're typically used to from our podcast and interview styles, but that's because I'm taking over for the day with a very special guest. I have the pleasure to talk to comedian, influencer, and social media star Jake Shane about his journey with OCD. Known as Octopus Lover 8 on TikTok and Pass That Puss on Instagram, Jake started off by making reviews of different octopus dishes he would try. He then started making skits, which launched him into viral fame, particularly the Monica Lewinsky skit from 2023. Now, Jake is busy gracing our screens as recently as last week, being a red carpet correspondent at the VMAs. He's making TikToks with Sophia Richie and is everybody's dream workout partner at the Aloe Gym. He is also going on a sold-out North American tour for his very own podcast, Therapist. While humor is definitely at the forefront of Jake's content, he is very open about his mental health journey, particularly when it comes to having OCD and anxiety. We are so excited to get to know Jake on a deeper level and learn more about how he lives with OCD, particularly with such a fast-paced, exciting lifestyle. Hi, Jake.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Before we get into everything,
Yes.
Is this like a tense up day, tense down? How are we feeling?
The tens haven't risen or gone down yet, so like we'll see. I'm like
Okay,
I'm sussing out the day.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm like skeptical for sure. Like, I'm pretty sure something just pissed me off. I'm pretty sure something did just piss me off. And I'm anxious about something. So we'll see how the rest of the day goes. I have high hopes though, because one of my best friends is in town.
Oh, yay. We love that. Just going off of, first of all, your friends, how do you think that your friends, like Julia, Peyton, Brett, how do they fit into your support system in terms of just like mental health? Do you feel like they kind of help you out in any way? Do they
like, well, there's my best friend. They are my best friends. And I don't know, like, there's something to be said about like, obviously, like, kind of like going into like the entertainment space. Like, there's a lot of different people around you at all times, so like having like people that have known you before, like sometimes you get scared that like maybe like you're losing yourself or you're changing, and like it's nice to have people around you that are like, oh no, you're the same, or like to keep you humble and like to keep you grounded. And like it's also like they like know me very well, so like when I like am seeing red and I'm very anxious, like it all blends together for me. But they'll be like, no, like this isn't, like this isn't one of your normal freakouts. Like this, like you don't, this is not serious. Like to have people around you that have known you for so long and have watched you grow, I think is really important to, it's like a coping mechanism in some sense.
Yeah.
They can help with that,
And do you feel like, obviously, like you had such a viral jump to fame with the Monica Lewinsky video, but do you feel like going through all of that was kind of hard on you mentally? Like, was it a big change where you're like, oh, wait?
Like, it was definitely a change, but I was so grateful that it was happening that like no part of me would ever complain about that.
Yeah. Awesome.
The only thing that I would like complain about would be like, I want to make it last. And I like the anxiety of making it last really stresses me out. But no, like it's probably that week was probably the happiest I've ever been, ever.
Aw, that's so good to hear. Do you think that as you kind of got more adjusted into your newfound fame, like the virality of it all, and just kind of shifting from your career in the music industry to more so like being this figure yourself, was there any sort of struggle there in terms of just like mentally, like I'm in front of all of these people, like now I am like here, hi everyone. Did
I
you?
always like to sorry, did I just interrupt you?
No, you're fine.
Okay,
Go.
sorry. I always like to say that like I always thought I was famous, so I always behaved that way.
Yeah.
So no, it didn't really feel like I was just I like like I was like a theater kid. Like I acted like I was like walking down the red carpet every time I like left the house. So like that didn't really feel different. It felt like honestly like kind of validating. But yeah, there are definitely moments like where I'm like, ooh, like I'm having a like okay, like walking into like a bar, like I have like a little more anxiety like doing that now, or like just like being. I think I feel the anxiety when I'm out for a night.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
where I really like during the day, like I could care less, but like when I'm out for a night and I'm like drinking and I'm like dancing, like I'm like a little anxious.
Yeah. And is that like the anxiety of it all, or is it
Yeah, it's made my anxiety worse. It's like,
okay?
oh wait, like what if someone like got me some doing something embarrassing last night? And I used to have like no anxiety, and I used to do like embarrassing shit.
Really?
Yes, like in college, like Godspeed. Like it was like not well, and like I don't know. I just feel like now my anxiety is like so much worse. So I've been like trying to drink less, honestly.
Yeah. And do you feel like you're just more aware of yourself and like how you're being perceived when you're out, maybe?
Yeah, I've always been so like I keep saying I've always, but I really have always been so aware of how I've been perceived. Like it's like
Mhm.
been in like a blessing and a curse. But yeah, like it's definitely on steroids now.
Yeah. And then switching kind of to OCD specifically, in your podcast, like you're super open about it. You mentioned some of the compulsions you've had, like having to pray every time you
Yeah.
swore
Oh my
or
god, I'm not even
smiling in the
Christian. Like
mirror.
what's happening?
And then like the clucking noises as
Yeah,
well,
the
right?
fuck. Oh my god.
Um,
Woo! Yeah.
I know we're not going to make you do it or anything. I know all about that. But are any of these compulsions still with you, or have you been able to kind of like manage and work through them through like the work
Well,
you've done on yourself,
sorry, I
medication?
keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
I do
Um,
that too. You're fine.
okay, good. I'm on meds, which has really subdued them. I don't
Mhm.
know what I would be like not on the meds, but I definitely have compulsions still. Like
Yeah.
there's a certain way I turn on my TV every night. There's a certain way I go to bed every night. There's a certain way I shower every morning. And like those are like the smallest ones. Like there's like sometimes I'll have to comment something for like the one that came back recently was commenting and deleting it and commenting and deleting it, commenting and deleting it, commenting and deleting it, or like making sure my comment has a certain number of words in it. That's
Yeah.
actually come back recently. That used to be pretty intense in high school and early college. But as far as the clucking, like knock, like I'm very superstitious. That hasn't gone away either. So every time I make a statement, I have to like knock on wood. That hasn't. That I mean, I don't even want to say that hasn't come back because I'm like so terrified of it coming back. But
Yeah.
like like haven't been dealing with that. And say what was the other one? It was the clucking and the pre. Yeah, well, hasn't been around since I was a kid because I curse
Okay.
like every other word, so that would just be a
Yeah.
disaster. Like some of the OCD, I'm like, okay, like I can be rational with this, like it's not happening.
Yeah. And with that comment kind of compulsion that you have with like make sure it's a certain amount of words, deleting it,
Right.
um, is that more so just like on social media in general, or is it like with like friends, like commenting on their separate Instagrams, or just like public
Yeah,
posts,
it's everything. It's
everything?
every post, every friend, like friend, industry friend, best friend, industry and best friend, like the whole to do.
Yeah.
Like
And
everything, everyone.
how does that, so like, I guess then leaving a simple comment for you sometimes is a lot harder than it might be
Yeah, it
for,
takes me like 10 minutes sometimes, which sounds
really.
so stupid, I know, but like it really does take me like so long sometimes.
No, it's not stupid because like I feel like with OCD in our head, and like you might disagree with this, but at least for me, like I dramatize every single
Yes,
moment.
everything, everything.
And so like to somebody that it's like, oh, it's just like a comment to me, I'd be like,
No.
no, but everyone's gonna look at this. I need to make sure it sounds a certain way, looks a certain way.
Mine
Just
is
the
more like if I don't have a certain number of words, like I'll get bad luck.
Okay, so it's like more of that like magical thinking going
Yes,
back to like
yes,
luck
yeah,
and all of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's my entire OCD is. I don't like I don't like I'm not really like worried about like what like yes there is a part of me that's worried about how people are going to read it, but my 90% of it is like okay, bad luck, good luck, like very that's like my entire basis.
Yeah. And do you ever feel, because I feel like that form of OCD can be a little more stigmatized where people are like, oh, this literally isn't real. Like, why are you worried about
Yeah,
it?
well
You
in my
know?
head it feels real.
Yeah, exactly. And then do you ever feel like if you're talking to someone, whether it's like on your podcast or just like a friend or something, and you're explaining this to them, how do you kind of help them understand like how real it feels in your head? Or do you not?
You can't. You just kind of
Yeah.
have to be like, this is like, I don't like you're there. No, if you're not experiencing it, you are not going to understand. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, it's just you're not. Like, it's like you can't. Like, unless you are the world's most empathetic person, like, the whole idea of it feels so ridiculous. It's like, well, what? Obviously, that's not true for people that don't experience it. But, like, it's just sometimes just like making sure people know that like it's in your head and it feels real to you. But like they're never gonna be like, okay, that makes sense. They're gonna be like, what?
Yeah.
Just
And
because like it feels crazy to people that it and that's fine. Like obviously like that's fine, but there's no type of way I can explain it that will like make someone understand it more. You know, like it's like this is what I think and that's why I act the way I act and that's that.
yeah. And so when you started noticing some of these things where you've been using like this magical thinking, like, oh, if I don't do this, it's going to be bad luck.
Right.
And I think you mentioned that you kind of started noticing these signs like in your childhood, right?
Yeah, I was 7 or 8.
Okay. At that time, I know you didn't know like necessarily like, oh, this is OCD. But did you feel like these compulsions or thoughts were normal? Like, were you like, oh, probably everyone thinks this, or were you like, no, this is kind of weird?
I thought I was like magic. Like I thought I like had like power to like control my like future.
Really?
Like I was like, oh, if I do this, it'll be good luck. If I do this, it'll be bad luck. Like that, I just like remember where I was when I first thought that. I don't even know how it came into my head, but yeah, I just remember thinking I could control the future. I think I started to realize it was weird in like 5th grade. My dad was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, and he would be like, "Just stop." And I'm like, "Well, I can't just stop." And
Yeah.
that's when I realized things were not right. But like before, I was like, I'm in control. Like it was a control thing. Like I thought I had magic powers and I could control the future.
And like, what would you try to do in order to control the future? Like, is there an example?
Touch things evenly. That was my biggest thing. So like even today, the fact that I can like touch this and not like that, like sometimes I want to, but like that's probably like my biggest accomplishment getting over that because that was like oh my god like that was horrible and like there's this episode of Girls on HBO where she goes through the exact same thing. And I remember watching that and being like, "Oh my god, I do the same thing." And
Did
I thought
that
no
like,
one else did that.
yeah, so did watching that episode like really help you be like, okay, this is something other people go through as well?
Yeah, I
Like,
was
was
like, "Oh, it's mental illness." Like
yeah,
this isn't like I'm not like the chosen one, but like in a bad way. Like I'm not miserable. Like I'm not my whole like I'm not the only one in the world who feels this way, which is like a nice feeling.
yeah,
Because
for sure.
OCD feels very isolated and very ridiculous. Like the whole premise is kind of ridiculous. Like and it feel like it really is. It's so isolated. Like it feels like
I
you're the
know.
only one experiencing this. You know what I mean? It's not like okay, I obviously know other people have depression. It's like some of your OCD stuff is so niche and so like it's like customizable to you that like it feels like no one else in the world goes through it.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of that is also because people just view OCD as like a neat freak disorder. Like,
Yeah, and
oh,
that's like my biggest pet peeve. Honestly, it's always been my biggest pet peeve. Like it
yeah,
really like grinds my gears. I'm like they're like I'm so OCD. I'm like no, you're just neat.
yeah. And why does
Like
that bother you so much as someone with OCD?
um because it's it's not like it's not like I don't know. Like if you it almost feels I know this sounds so deranged, but it's like
Mm,
just because you're neat, you can't be like I have OCD. Like that's not
yeah,
how it works. And it almost like diminishes it what it is. And then like like it just doesn't, like, no one know, like, it's like people understand it less and people will be less forgiving towards it because they'll hear it more. So once it becomes oversaturated in your like vocabulary because everyone's saying they have OCD, you take it less seriously. But it's a pretty serious to like mental illness. Like it's pretty serious and like really debilitating, and like that's I think why it bothers me because um like it feels like it wasn't taken seriously, so I kind of just had to push through it my whole life. Like I was never given like a mental health day. Like I never had that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like um you don't like it, I don't know. That's like it's just like frustrating. Like it makes it like I remember like someone being like oh I think I have OCD. I'm like no you don't. Like I have
Yeah.
it just invalidates and makes it seem so much less intense than it actually is. I think.
Yeah, and also because like that's just one type of OCD, right? Like
Right.
there's so many other forms of it that people just aren't even aware of, and like reducing it to just one thing or even just joking about it is kind of like, no, that's not really how it is for most people.
Right. And I don't mind the jokes almost
Yeah.
because I really believe like the only way to the laughter is like the only like I am like the biggest advocate for like joke about what like whatever like I don't care, but like when you're like saying it with conviction that you have it, that's when
Yeah.
I'm like, and you're like just like making sure your room is neat, like that's where I get just a little bit frustrated.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and since you've been so like vocal about just like your journey with anxiety and OCD, was this something that you always kind of thought you would talk about, or did it just like happen with you being you and you're just like, this is a part of me that I want to share? Like, how did that kind of come
I
about?
think it just happened. I remember like the week everything happened, I was like, should I still like talk about this stuff? And then I was like, if I take myself too seriously, this is gonna crash and burn in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So I just have to be honest.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, like, you're talking out about this has a huge impact because, like, even as a fan myself and as like my friends watch your podcast and everything, and a lot of them like weren't really aware about OCD and like other mental
Yeah, it's
illnesses.
crazy, right? It's like,
Yeah,
well, it's not crazy. It's just like a lot of people don't know. And like, I wish I had someone that was like, oh my God, I have this. This is like what I do to make myself feel better when I was younger. Because the first time I saw it, it was Hannah on Girls.
yeah,
And that was it. And that was like the only time I ever saw it. And like, so it's nice to, I feel like to be talked about in a casual way too. Like we don't need to talk about mental health and like this, like it can exist in the same conversation as a joke. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like I try to talk about everything. That's the only way you can make something like feel normal. Like if I'm
Hmm.
like, hey guys, like, now we're gonna talk about OCD. Like it's like okay, like but if you just like weave it into a conversation naturally, like people will listen and they won't feel as weird if they,
Yeah.
does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense. And that's why I think that it's so cool that you do talk about it because you're kind of like a voice for people that are like, oh, maybe I relate to this. Like, this is
Right,
interesting.
right.
But I feel like what you do really well is you weave it in, like you were saying, in a way that it's not like weird. It's just like, oh, this is how I feel, you know? So then
It's
people are
literally
like,
just who I am.
yeah, and then people can like realize that, and also just since you have such a broad audience, like I feel like it introduces OCD to people in a way where it's more digestible, you know, because
Right,
like we're not making it like, yes, it can be very scary, it can
right,
be debilitating, but it's also just a thing, you
right,
know, like, we got to deal with that.
right.
um and then kind of going off of like what you have going on in life, so you're going on tour, sold out tour,
I
yay,
know,
so
I'm so
exciting.
excited.
How do you feel? Are
Good.
you nervous?
I want to go now. I
Yeah,
just want to do
not
it.
nervous.
My tour manager is coming over like probably right now. We're going over the whole tour and like I'm just excited. I want to like get to go in and just
Yeah.
get it done.
Do you feel at all more nervous about being like live, or are you like totally fine with that?
No, I feel good.
Nice.
I'm excited. I mean, I used to be really nervous about it, but I love like making people laugh and like and hearing the laughter in person like is like really like rewarded. So I'm really excited
Yeah.
about
And just since you're so like obviously like you're so public with everything, right? Like you're on TikTok, you're on YouTube. And you've opened up to the public and your fans a lot about just, you know, the mental illnesses that you deal with. Um, is that at all different from, how do I say this? Is it easier sometimes to talk to like the general public about what you're going through than maybe like one person, like an
that.
individual
Yeah,
that's close to you? Yeah.
because everyone's like, wait, same.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Is
oh, okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure that like we're all feeling this way. It's like when you like, I always say it's like when you don't do the homework and someone else doesn't do the homework either. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Just making sure.
it's like a way to connect
Yeah.
sometimes. And do you think just like that broader like audience, because yeah, maybe there'll be a lot of people that understand, it feels like less pressure than like maybe talking to one
Well, I
person
just
about.
like well, also a part of OCD I've learned it's I like learn new things every day. It's like the over transparency. So you need
Mm-hmm.
to tell everybody every part of who you are, every side of the situation. In case like, well, did you not? I need to tell you about it this way, doing it this thing, and that like I need to tell you this is how I feel, just because like maybe you're gonna find out that this is how I like like you want to like make sure everyone knows everything about you. So like I have like this fear of people hating me and people like leaving me. So like I sometimes feel like if I can just tell everybody how I feel all the time, then like I just like they'll get to know me more and like
Yeah.
they'll I just like it's like this overcompensation, I think, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Um, do you ever struggle with intrusive thoughts while you're like doing your job, like while you're filming, making a TikTok, any of that? Or is it
Oh,
more
all the
so
time.
all the time?
Yeah.
What are some of the thoughts that go through your head?
It literally just depends on the day. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, don't do that. Like I was working out today and like I honestly don't know if I had any while working out today, but sometimes it's like do like one more sit up. Like I know that sounds stupid, but it's like you know what I mean? Like you have to or else you'll get bad luck. Like you
Yeah.
have because like sometimes like my like we'll be counting and like the trainer will be like we'll say I'm at 10 when I'm at 9 and like yeah, I want to get up and not do an extra one, but then I'm like I have to do or like I have to make it correct.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
yeah, if you feel like you don't make it correct, does that kind of cause your brain to be like, oh no, something bad's gonna
Yeah, like
happen?
it's whatever I'm anxious about. It's like, well, this is gonna happen if you don't do that.
Okay, so like your OCD kind of, in a way, can latch on to like what you're anxious or nervous about in that moment.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
like,
Yes.
okay, so like,
Yes.
do you feel like it kind of makes you feel like sometimes, oh, if I don't do this, then this bad thing that I've been worrying about all day is
Yes.
definitely gonna happen?
Yes. And it like changes on the week.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I deal with a lot of that too, and then
Yeah. It's
end up
horrible.
asking way too many questions to people, and it's not fun, but it's fun.
Well, we got to do what we got to do.
We gotta do what we gotta do. Um, do you have any like intrusive thoughts that are new from when you first recognized you had OCD coming up after you've kind of stepped into this career path?
You know, they're all the same. I like to say they're all the same in different fonts. So it's like,
Okay.
let's say I'm nervous about something today. Like until this is over, like my intrusive thoughts will be about that.
Okay. Yeah, that
Just
makes
like
sense.
situational.
Yeah. Um,
They seem a
and
little more dire, but then I think about it. Like even before, they always seem dire. Like I always thought like I was getting fired, like that was a big intrusive thought of mine, and like I do still have that same intrusive thought. It just manifests differently because it's a different type of firing. You know,
yeah,
it's like by the public instead of by a company. So it's
yeah.
like the same type of. It's like oh my god, even saying that like gives me anxiety. But yeah,
So how do you deal with that fear of kind of like not even just like being disliked by everyone when you're so liked currently? Is there something that you have to remind yourself or oh no, I don't like
um,
to say.
um, no, like I smoke a lot of weed, and
Yeah,
then I hang out with my friends, and I overcompensate and just try to constantly make people laugh and constantly entertain because I think like if I'm entertaining, then they can't hate me. If I'm entertaining, then they can't hate me. If I'm like just like being a jester and entertaining, then they can't hate me. Then they won't
but
hate me.
is that not hard for you sometimes, like just overexertion and training?
No, it is.
Or
It is.
yeah,
And like sometimes I'll like snap to like the people closest around me and like
mhm,
I'll have like a really big meltdown. Like yesterday I had like a literal like meltdown. And
yeah.
then I smoked a joint and I was like, oh, I'm crazy. Like you know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
like like it was like oh my god I'm burnt out like I snapped but like at the same time I feel bad saying that because I'm so grateful that my
Of course.
career is getting to entertain people so
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
there's pros and cons to everything and like I will take the cons gladly because I love the pros so much.
yeah. And like in those situations where sometimes like it's just so mentally overwhelming and like you're doing so much and always on, and you do end up maybe snapping at those closest to you, how do you kind of like make them understand that this isn't like necessarily like you being mad at them or anything? It's just so much
They
going on.
like I'll like apologize. I'll be like, I'm
Yeah.
really sorry. I was so crazy today.
Yeah.
I'm very self-aware. I know
Okay.
when I'm in the wrong and I know when I'm crazy. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very sorry. Like, and then that helps for next time. You're like not gonna, but like sometimes in the moment, you're just like, oh my God, like you're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I totally.
Everything feels like the end of the world. Everything is either like, so everything is very extreme with OCD. So if I'm
Yeah.
angry, I'm furious. And if I'm happy, I'm elated.
Yeah. And has there been anyone, like, kind of in your circle, obviously, as you've become more famous and stuff, that has been kind of like a rock for like helping you navigate kind of the mental pressure of it all while still like maintaining like a like good career, good standing?
Yeah, my manager, Zach, he's
Yeah.
my best friend.
And you used, didn't you work with him
Yeah, I
before?
was his assistant.
Yeah.
So he
Awesome.
really knows me. We have a really good relationship.
Yeah.
And then I
Awesome.
also, my tour manager, Matt, and my, like, just my best friends, like,
Yeah.
everyone on my team, Louise, like, but really especially Zach.
Yeah, awesome. And why do you think he kind of understands you? Like, do you think he's just known you so long that he gets how your brain works, or?
He knew me as when I like worked for him.
Mm-hmm.
So he saw, I don't know why I don't know. I think I'm just very transparent with him, very
Yeah,
comfortable with him. The fact, like, I'm just like, he knows me. Like, he reads me like a book.
yeah. And then in terms of your tour coming up, I know you said that you're just like super excited and ready to go for it and everything. But do you have any like kind of like mental like plans in place or anything for, oh, what if I get really anxious during this thing and it's live? Or do you have any?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't think about that.
Okay,
It's like, it's
you don't even
happening,
think about it.
and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? There's some stuff where I'm like, "It's happening," and, like, we're gonna just have to deal with it in the moment. Like,
Yeah.
but, like, you're right. Like, that's probably a good thing I should probably think
No.
about, but, like, I'm just like, "It's fucking happening." Like, we're doing it. Like, I gotta figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, like sometimes with mental illness, that's just how it has to be too,
Yeah,
right? Like even not even mental illness, just anxiety. Like sometimes you just gotta like deal with it in the moment because if you
right,
think too much about it, it can just
right.
cause more. If there's one thing that you could change about the way people perceive OCD, what would it be?
I would just appreciate a bit more grace.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Just a little bit more grace.
And what do you mean by that?
Like, I wish people understood, like, I believe what I'm thinking, right? Like, I know it's crazy to some people, but I believe it. And it's
Yeah.
very debilitating. So, like, a little, just like a little, I mean, I just think people are very harsh on each other today. And I just wish there was just a little more grace in general.
Yeah.
Everyone has is going, like, it's very hard to be in your own brain in the digital age. Um, and just, I think everyone needs a little bit. I just think grace is important. It's hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
be in this digital age. Is like, we're the first generation that grew up with social media. Like, we don't really know how it's going to affect our brains. We don't know how it's going to affect who we are as adults. We don't really, everyone's kind of figuring it out. And I just think that's important. Like,
Yeah.
it's important to show compassion.
For sure. And then for your own OCD, when you did kind of realize, like, okay, this is a thing, this is something that I'm dealing with, what was your, like, kind of first step in seeking help for it?
I didn't seek help for like 20
You
years.
didn't. Okay.
My parents like tried to send me to therapy, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
I was
And so,
very, I didn't want to do that. I ended up taking meds when I was 21. I think that's when I started taking meds.
and was there like a reason you didn't want to do therapy where you just,
It just like wasn't working. I started taking meds because I was working at the job I had before this,
uh-huh.
um, and I didn't want to do a bad job. I felt really passionate about it, and I really didn't want to lose it. And I knew
Yeah.
that there was moments that I was being slow on my work because of my OCD, and I was like, I can't have this can't happen.
Yeah. And did you try therapy at all, or were you just like, no, like I don't want
I
to do it?
tried like 20 different therapists.
Yeah.
I was like in and out, in and out, in and out. Nothing was working.
Yeah. And like
Speaking
in
of,
that
I'm like about to skip therapy right now. Like I'm not
oh,
going.
no.
No, I
I
can't.
get that
No,
though, because
I can't
like,
go. I can't go today. It's not happening. I'm sorry. It can't. I can't.
yeah. I mean, like in that sense too, I feel like it's so important if you do want to do therapy, right? Like
Uh,
if that's for you, and for some people it's not, and that's totally
it
okay.
should be for everyone. I just don't want to do it today because I have stuff to do.
Period. But I mean, honestly, some people it doesn't work for them, and that's okay. But I feel like that's where it's important to like really
Mm,
find someone that understands like
I think
you.
if it's not working for someone, they just don't have the right therapist. I don't know if that's like a bad
Exactly.
blanket statement, but like that's
No.
what I think.
Yeah. So you do believe that like finding the right therapist that understands your issues
You need to
specifically.
talk to an unbiased person that won't repeat your shit.
Okay, exactly. Well, Jake, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your mental health journey. We are so excited for your tour and can't wait to see what else you have going on in the future. Again, at NOCD, we're trying to reduce the stigma around OCD and other illnesses and encourage as many people as possible to get the proper help they need. And this open and honest conversation definitely helps with that. So, thank you so much for getting into it on a deeper level with us.
Oh, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you feel you are struggling with OCD, remember you are not alone and it's okay. Book a free call with a licensed NOCD therapist today and make the first step in managing your mental illness. Our therapists all specialize in OCD treatment using ERP, which is the gold standard treatment of OCD. Exposure and response prevention therapy works by interrupting the cycles of obsessions and compulsions. In ERP, you're encouraged to gradually and carefully confront your obsessions, sit with the discomfort you feel, and resist the urge to do those compulsions. You can also follow our Instagram and TikTok at Treat My OCD to keep up to date with everything that we're doing to better serve the OCD community. Thank you all so much for tuning in today.